Hi, welcome to this 3ds Max tutorial, and in this one we're going to look at creating basic objects. So this is a follow-on from two of the early basic ones we've just done, and in this one in previous ones we've looked at moving objects and the toolbars and the interface and things. In this one we're going to look at just creating basic objects using some of the standard primitives here. So these are some of the objects we're going to be creating. If I bring up some pictures, we'll have a look at sort of the objects we're going to do. So we're going to create a simple chair using boxes and to create the legs rectangles and things like that. We'll have a go at creating a patio table. We're not going to create any of this detail here, we're just going to create the shapes first of all. And we'll have a go at a table like this as well, some round legs and things, but we'll probably miss out the crossbars there, but it's just an idea to give you an idea of how to use the align tool and how to create the basic geometries for this shape. Right, so let's have a go at these. So if I press Alt W with that screen selected, I will go to this, and the first one we'll have a go at doing is this table here. So it's basically just a small oval with a cylinder, and actually a cylinder, another cylinder, and another cylinder. Okay, so it's three cylinders on top of each other. If I get the cylinder here and I drag out the base, and let's leave it there and just give it a little bit of height. So that'll be our base. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that using the selection tool here and just set its X and Y coordinates. Let's make it on move, sorry. And what we're going to do is we're just going to set it to 0 to 0 and to 0. So that's that. And let's give it a radius of, say, if we go to the modifier here where we can modify our shape, let's give it a radius of about let's see, that's quite a lot there. That's 300 millimeters, so that's about 30 centimeters. Actually, let's give it a radius of about 500 actually, so it's about half a meter in its full radius. That should be about fine there. Its height is about 30 centimeters, but I'll probably want to make that 30 millimeters. Sorry, so that's 3 centimeters. Sorry. So what we need to do is probably 3 centimeters is probably about right. So yeah, we'll keep that at 30 millimeters. Now the height segment, because we're not using much height here at all, we could take that down to 1 really. We don't need any more height segments at all. The cap segment, which is the top, is only 1. Now the side's 18 here, and with smooth on we can see, let's have a look at the render a sec, and you can see that it's quite jaggedy around the edge there. So let's increase the size. Let's try something like 30, and let's render that, see how that looks. Not bad. Maybe I'll just I'll up that a bit more to 40 maybe, and let's render that and have a look. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. That's our base. Next thing we're going to do is create another cylinder. Remember, we're not going to worry about the size or anything yet. And I'll go to the create standard primitive cylinder, and I'll click out and I'll drag it up. So we're not going to worry about that. Let's give this a radius of, say, perhaps 15 centimeters, which is 150 millimeters. Actually less than that then. Let's try something more like about 50, which is 5. That looks about right. So about 5 centimeters in radius, perhaps even less actually. Let's go down to let's try about 40. That's looking better. And a height, well, let's have a look at that picture again. I mean, it's obviously hard to tell its height. Probably about half a meter or something. So if we give it a height here of half a meter, which would be about 500, I think that's probably a little bit too short, so let's try it again and give it a height of perhaps 80 centimeters, which is 800 millimeters. And actually looking at it now, that base is quite wide for if that's an 80 centimeter thing. So obviously this is done without dimensions of the actual real object. So if I come in here and modify this, and let's take the radius down from 0.5 meter to something like, let's see what it's like at 400. Let's try 350. So that's looking a bit more realistic there. Height segments, size 40 on this cylinder here. Now it probably doesn't need that many because it's quite a small radius here. So let's try it down at something like 18 on this one, and let's just render that object and see what we've got. And that looks, I'd say that looks alright. We could probably go even lower than that, but I'll keep it at that for the moment. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start using the align tool, which is this tool here. And when we align objects, you can align to, or let me select object. First of all, you select the first object, and if I bring up the align tool now, I then click on the second object, and you have these options where I can align it to the X position, Y position, and Z position. Z being up, X position being this way, and Y position being this way. And you have these weird options here, which are minimum, center, pivot point, and maximum. So we can align things from the original object, which is the first one I selected, the minimum, which is its lowest point in that direction. So say for instance we're going to do here the X and Y axis here. So the maximum of the X axis on this object would be the furthest point this way. So this is the maximum and this is the minimum. So here the maximum is this end and the minimum is this end, and for Y the maximum's here and minimum there, minimum, maximum. So the first thing I want to do is center them both actually on the X and Y axis. So I'm going to select X, Y, center, center, and then I want to make sure that the bottom of the object, which is the one I've selected, let's apply that. So the bottom of this object, which is going to be the minimum, because it's the bottom and this would be the top, the highest point in the plus way, this is negative down here, meets the maximum of the bottom object, that bottom object there. So minimum to maximum, and now the minimum of this is on the maximum of this object here. And I'm going to OK that, and we're going to try that again with another object. So let's get another cylinder, and this one's going to be a bit bigger again. Okay, probably some more sides this time to keep it looking nice and round. Let's get it up to 40. Maybe a bit more even at that side, so let's keep it up to 50. Okay, and let me just remind myself, I'm going to keep it roughly the same thickness as this one. So the thickness on this one, if I go to the modifier panel, is 30 millimeters. So I'm going to make this one 30 millimeters. There we go. Let me just move it over to the side a bit. Okay, remember if you don't have this option here, it's because X has been pressed, so I'm looking at areas there, so I can have it like this as well, so you can move it in different angles. And what we want to do is, let's give this a radius of, actually it looks pretty good at a radius of 1 meter, so that's 1000. So it's got a meter radius, and what I'm going to do is align this to the top of this. So if you think about it, first of all I'm going to align it to the center on the X and the Y axis, and then I'm going to align it to the minimum of this area here, which is the lowest point on the Z axis, to the maximum Z axis up here. So I select the align tool, I click on the object I want to align it to, make sure that this one's selected first of all, and now let's click off Z first of all, and let's do X and Y and center to center and apply that. And then for the Z point, we're going to have it at the minimum of this one, which is the first one we selected, to the maximum of this one. You'll see it's aligning it to the center at the moment. If we do it to maximum and apply and OK, there you can see we've now created a very basic table. So that's the first table that we're going to create, and what I'd like you to do is save that into a folder. So if you go up to your Autodesk symbol up there and we go to Save As, and you can create a place maybe on your desktop or something called 3ds Max or something, and save that in. I'm going to save that as round table. And once you've done that, go to the Autodesk symbol again and reset the scene. And now we're going to work on our second table. So the second table we're going to create is, let's have a look, that's our chair, which we'll do in a second. That's a smaller little table, you could have a go at later, but for the moment we're going to try and do this table. And the reason we're going to do this one is because we're going to try and move the legs inwards slightly, so we're going to align it to angles here, to the points, and then bring it in slightly from the sides. So we're going to try and create this school size table, which looks to be about 1.5 meters that way and about maybe 80 centimeters up or something. So we'll work on those sort of dimensions, you know, without properly measuring it. We won't be totally sure, but we're just going for the shape. So the first way of doing this would be to create a box. Remember, we're not worried about the size, so I'm just going to click and drag it out, give it some height there, because we're going to go to the modifier afterwards. And then from the modifier here, length segments 1, fine. Width segments, height segments, that's totally fine. So the length here, 0.5 meter, which is 1,500 millimeters. The width, well, let's have a look at about 800 maybe. And the height, probably about 3 centimeters again. So we've got our table there, and that's totally fine. And next thing we're going to do, I'm just going to actually go to the move tool again, and I'm just going to align that to the center of the world. So 0, 0 and 0, which is done. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some legs for it. So if I go and create a cylinder and just click it out and drag it up, and then go to the modifier, height segments. Well, I don't need many height segments. In fact, remember, you can see the height segments if I just click off that sec and then press F4, I can switch between them, and F3 would do the wireframe as well. So that shows you edge face, and it says there realistic edge face. So if I have those on for the moment, let's have a look at it with this, and I'll go to the modifier, select the object, height segments, let's make it 1. Okay, so now it's got rid of all the height segments. So if I convert that to a polygon later, it'll be a lower file size. And let's select the object again. Sides, well, we haven't made it our right size yet in the radius, so let's make a radius of say 30 centimeters. So, oh, that's way too much, sorry. 3 centimeters, 30. So that's going to be one of our legs, and the height perhaps 800. So that's 80 centimeters. And now let's have a look. That's too many, you know, unless you're going to do something super fine. That's too many edges there. If we render it, let's have a look. In fact, I can zoom in a bit more before we render it. So let's have a render from here. And it's very, very smooth object. So let's see if we can. Let's see how we can get that down and maximize our file size. And that still looks good at 13. Let's take it down a bit more. Yeah, I'd say that's about the point we're going to have it at, so about 10 there, and that's fine. And remember, that's with the smooth option on as well. So I'm going to first of all, I'm going to align this to the center of this object. So I've got that selected. I click on the align tool, left click on the object, X and Y position, center to center, and apply, and OK. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to align this to this, but I'm going to align this so it's the minimum to the maximum of that object. And I'm going to click on this object first, and then I'm going to click the align tool and left click on the leg. And now I'm going to select the Z position, and I'm going to align the minimum of the current object to the maximum of this object here, and apply it. And now if I hold down Alt in the middle mouse wheel, I can see that that is aligned where I want it. And let's go back to our original position and the perspective. Right, the next thing to do would be align this to a corner here. And to do that, we're going to go to the top view. So if I press T, I go to the top view, and if I press F4 or F3, sorry, I can now go to the wireframe view, and I want to align this to down here. So if I click on this object, which is selected, and I select the table, if I just go to F4 so I can just see that and bring it down here. So I'm selected on that object, and I'm going to left click there. And what we're going to do is we're going to now, along the x-axis, I'm going to align the minimum of this side to the minimum of this side, and that will give us the minimum side there against that, and apply that. And then I'm going to align the minimum y to the minimum y here. So I select the y there, minimum to minimum, and apply. And if I flick back to top view now, you can actually see down there, let's go to the wireframe view, you can see it's in position there. Now what I'm going to do is, on the original picture we had, let's just see if I can bring it up a sec. Is it this one? There we go. The legs are actually slightly inward of the table, so they're not right on the edge, they're in slightly. So this is a useful way of doing that. If I wanted to move this along, say 5 centimeters and up 5 centimeters, so it's about here, rather than using these dimensions here, which are relative to the world position that this object's on, what I can do is, with that object selected, I can use the absolute tool, and I can perhaps move it along the y position 5 centimeters, and along the x position, which is positive this way as well, 5 centimeters, and then turn off the absolute mode, and we're back to there. And let's go back to our perspective view, and I'm going to press F3 just to bring up the realistic view again. And there we are, it's in position. Okay, so now we want to create a copy of our table leg here. And to do that, if you hold down Shift, and you can drag out on any one of these angles, I'm going to drag out along the x-axis here, it'll make a copy, and a clone rather, and it's going to ask us whether we want to make a copy of it, an instance or reference. And a copy is a version of the object that we can manipulate, and it won't affect any of the others. An instance, if you manipulate one of the objects, it'll manipulate all of them. So this is actually a table leg, so we're going to create an instance. And a reference is they're kind of used when you want to make an object that you want to refer to. For example, if you're building something, and if you make a modification to the original, the reference will be the reference will have changes made to it. But if you make a modification to the reference, the original won't be affected. So we're just going to create this instance here. For the most part, you'll only use instances and copies in the projects we're going to do. So I'm going to create a copy there, an instance rather, sorry now, I'm confusing myself, and I'm going to align this to this side of the table here. So once again, what I'm going to do is, I've got the object selected, and I'm going to align it to the table, and I'm going to align it along the x-axis, and it's going to be the maximum of this side to the maximum of this side, maximum to maximum, and apply it. And I actually know that because I dragged it out across the x-axis and didn't affect the y, that the y should be in the right position. So what I'm going to do is bring the x-axis back 5 centimeters. So if I make it relevant to its own things, minus 50. You can see it now that that's off. And okay that, it'll move into position and bring it back to the world view, or the world reference points. And now if I select both of these objects, let me get the selection tool, and control select both of those, and now hold down Shift and drag this out. I'm going to now create an instance, and we have those legs there. Now the x-axis on both of those should be in position, so it's only the y that I need to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to align these two to the y position here, and it's going to be the maximum y of both objects there. So apply that, and they should be up against the edge of the table there, which they are. And now both of these are going to have to move back along the y-axis minus 50, and I'm going to do the same to this one as well, minus 50. And let me just zoom out there, and there we have our table. Probably those legs are a bit thick actually on there, but you know, that's just the basic example of how to create two of the tables that we were going to create. And let me return to the same position. So you could save this as table 2, and what we're going to use is we're going to use these tables and things in later projects that we're going to create as well, so we have to bring them in. And I'm going to save that as table 2, then I'm going to reset my scene and press Alt and W, and now we're going to create the chair. So the chair is, I believe it's this one, is it? Let me just bring up the chair a second. There we go. So this is going to be, we're not going to worry too much about the tapering in of the edges here, we'll look at taper later on, but we're just going to create a simple rectangle there, rectangle on the back, and 4 rectangular legs just coming down for one of the chairs. So here we go, from our workspace. I'm going to get a box and just draw out roughly, doesn't have to worry too much, and bring it up. And let's make the length of this, I'll just look at the chair I'm sitting on roughly so I get roughly around the right things, about 50 centimeters in length, 50 centimeters in width, and a height, let's go for 30 again. Actually that looks a bit thin for the chair, so I want to make it 40, let's go 50 actually, there we go. So there's our chair, and we're going to have the back of the chair actually connect to the back here. And to do that, what we're going to do is I'm going to create another rectangle, and this time what we're going to do is I'm going to make the length thinner. So the length of the object this time, was it about 50? And the width of the object, what did I go for then? Was it 50 as well? It can't be 50, it's 500. And the height, let's keep the height at 500 because the chair was a bit taller on the other one, so actually let's make it 600. Okay, so that's going to be the back of our chair in a minute, and let's make ourselves 4 legs as well. So we're going to use the box tool again here, and I'm just going to bring this up, and let's make the height, oh sorry, that's the length. I want to make the height 600, and I'm going to make the length probably about 20. Oh, that looks a bit too thin there. Let's go for 40. On 40. There we go. So we'll put the first leg on this, and then we'll move this into position afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to center all these objects first. So I've got the move tool, click on the object, and what I'm going to do, oh, and you'll see it's on relative to the object at the moment, so I want to turn that off, make it relative to the world. 0, 0, and 0, so it's in there. I'm going to align this by clicking on it, and click the align tool, and I'm going to make its X and Y position center to each. Next I'm going to align this to the top of this, so I click on that object, click the align tool, and it's the X and Y's are off, and it's the Z position, and it's going to be the minimum to the maximum, and click apply. Next I'm going to move this into the corner here, so I click on this object and align to this one here, and it's going to be minimum to minimum on the X and Y position here. Well, the Y position first, the X position minimum to minimum, and then the Y position will also be minimum to minimum as well, so that's going to put it in the corner there. I'm going to apply and OK. And next I'm just going to duplicate one of the legs first of all and create an instance. So hold down shift and just create an instance. You should really be giving it names now for each leg and things, but for the moment we're not going to worry about that too much. And that's an instance, and I'm going to align that to the maximum of the x-axis. So x maximum to maximum, and click apply. Okay, let's just have a quick look around at that. That all looks good. Right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on here now and then attach the two legs to the bottom of this. So this actually will go down the back here. Now at the moment we haven't really looked at the snapping tool, but this is the first time we're going to have a look at it. And if I right click on the snapping tool, you'll see here there's different sort of areas you can snap to, and the main ones we're going to use are vertices. You could snap to pivot points as well, so pivot to pivot, which is quite useful. Grid points at the moment, so if I have snapping on, I will snap to these grid points here. And if you're using dimensions, that you might say this is 1 meter or this is going to be half a meter, which we can set up later on, using the grids and things here. So I could say at the moment our grid spacing here is, you know, quite an unusual sort of spacing here, 254 millimeters. But I might make that half a meter or something, so I know if I'm working on some architecture or something, it'd be half a meter segments that I'm working on. But for the moment what we're going to snap to is the vertex. So we're going to snap vertex to vertex. I want to turn off grid points, click on vertex and close it, turn the snapping on, and the vertexes are going to be these corners here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap this corner to the corner of that, the lower bottom corner there of that, and that's just snapped it into position where we wanted the object. Yeah, so we'll look at the snapping tool more and more, but that's one of the useful ways of using the snapping tool. So I'm going to undo the snapping tool now, and what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate these two here. So I'm control select both of them, hold down shift and pull out the legs there. I could use the snapping tool again now if I wish to, so I could have those two there. I'm going to create an instance and I can turn on the snapping tool, and I could then snap this object to, oh that's the wrong vertex actually, this top corner here to, now let me get a proper grip on it there, to the top corner there, and from here I could snap that corner there to that corner there. This is why it's useful to sometimes work in wireframe mode as well, so you can see exactly how to get, there we go. So not perfect first attempt, but get in there the second attempt, and that's our chair. So in this tutorial what we've covered is just creating some basic objects, and really the align tool, and how to just use the align tool and the move tool in a bit more complex way than we have in earlier tutorials. What I suggest you do is you save this object as well as the chair, like that, and we'll come back and we'll use these objects in later tutorials and we'll add textures to them, so they start to look more complex. We'll also probably create some more complex chairs as well, so we won't just create this bog standard looking thing, but that's just to help you get used to those basic tools. Thank you very much.